Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who gets to talk once again about King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard and their new album, The Silver Chord. Now, it's funny because I'm late to the party, right? I didn't start reviewing them until a couple years ago. But it's like showing up 3 hours late to a party, and it turns out the party is going to go on for a week, you know? In the end, the first couple albums that I missed, the first 10, 15 albums that I missed, I can't figure out how important it is, because basically, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard not only has like kind of a cool psychedelic aesthetic and old-time rock and roll feel, they actually are cranking out albums like even faster than the way they used to crank them out in the 60s. You know, like Revolver and Rubber Soul came out like within, 8 months of each other? Something crazy like that. And it just seems like they're just cranking out these great albums. And the thing, of course, is even though I'm late to the party, it's not like there's some static gizness that I can really absorb. You know, the only real consistent that I can tell from my few years of listening to them and loving them is this constant stylistic shift. That their stylistic consistency is actually a lack of consistency. To the point, sorry, that's the sound of my dog walking in and then deciding not to and walking out of the room. So the only thing that's consistent is this inconsistency. And I get the sense that if you were a King Gizzard fan, like, you could sort of only listen to their music and be okay. I mean, I don't really mean that, but I could imagine that with how many different emotions and genres they go through, you could really have a very rich musical experience only listening to one band. Not that I suggest it. What I think makes them particularly special, and that's definitely seen in such a huge departure, now the other dog's coming in, such a huge departure, you can see him, so you can see I'm not going crazy. Yeah, that's Toby. With such a huge departure from the last album, Petro Dragonovich, whatever that one was called, and this one, Silver Chord, going from sort of heavy thrash metal to kind of disco, electro, acid house, there are still commonalities. And that's what I think makes them so great, is this fact that even though they're so different, we always have certain odd microtonal scales, playing with time signatures, some throat singing, and most of all, just joy. Just like pure joy. And that's the only way I can really describe their music. It's, to quote Ren and Stimpy, it's happy, happy, joy, joy music. Even though lyrically, the only thing that I can tell really unites them is they are just constantly singing about ecological doom, right? They're harbingers of ecological doom and about dread and all that. First of all, they deserve credit for no matter how goofy their lyrics are, that they're writing them themselves. Most great joyful jam bands hire other people to write their music. But really that's what unites everything. So the last album, Petro Dragonovich, whatever it was called, Petro something, it was like this thrash metal album, and it had like a Gila monster on the cover. As I discussed in my last review, I didn't buy that album because that album actually ruined my picnic, okay? I was going out with my family and we're all Gizzard fans, and I put that on in the car and I thought we were all going to just sit there and enjoy some fun times, but it was just too hard, man. The rockin' was just too hard for me. So while that album ruined my picnic, this new album saved my Sunday. Okay? I listened to this album non-stop. The second I finished listening to that new Taylor Swift album and uploading my video, I have just been listening to this King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard album, and my whole house has been filled with it, and it's been completely joyful. Especially with my baby, right? So I have a 1-year-old baby, 14 months now, and she's really into music. Like, she listens to music and she gets excited. I'm trying to teach her rhythms. I'm trying to keep, I just do 1, 2, 3, 4. She gets excited and just goes like this. And so this is really fun music because rhythmically it's not usually in 4/4, but sometimes it is. But it just has this great rave-like feeling. So we just had a full rave in the little enclosure that we call the baby pit. And now, if you will forgive me, this made me realize that I should probably make a joke based on the Stefan character from Saturday Night Live. Let's see how much I'm going to regret this. Okay. Western New York's hottest nightclub is the Baby Pit. It's got everything. Tired professors reading Goodnight Moon. It's got Giz raves. And that's the thing where a 1-year-old bounces up and down and just screams, "Buh!" It's got goats in boats, Dante, Grover, Serbian scientists, dry-aging duck in the basement, and a double-decker dog orgy. It seemed funnier on paper. The reason I talk about this as a rave album is, and you have to forgive me, is that it's what I think of. It's an electronic dance music album that's also kind of a disco album and is also still a jam band album, which made me realize that when we think about especially long-form disco and especially long-form electronic dance music, they are, in and of themselves, kind of like jam music. Now, it's not musicians playing together, creating and improvising. It's a lot more predictable. It's a lot more based on sequencing, like actually sequencing in a computer as opposed to playing together. But it still puts you in that same kind of space. So they managed to do something. And they're not the first to do it, right? But still, as such a great jam band, my argument is they are the best living jam band. They managed to make a great EDM jam band album. Except we now have the Radiohead question, the Kid A question, right? I remember when Kid A came out as a big Radiohead fan and being like, what is this? And what did Tom do with the rest of the band? And that's the real question. What's going on here? Who's making all this music? Because the music is so good and you get so into it and you're just jamming out and you're just in the Baby Pit. Yes, yes, yes. You're in the Baby Pit, but like, how is this music being, how are there 6 dudes in this band? What is the 6th dude doing? And I apologize, I don't know the name of any of them. I'm pretty sure one of them is named Stu. So I think Stu is the head of the group. But I don't know the rest of them. But what is everyone else doing? I don't know, and I'll go one step further. I don't really care. Now, what I've done for this album is I've done something new, okay? I created a playlist. It is a playlist of songs which I believe influenced this album, which I know influenced this album, and which I think go well with this album. I'll be talking about this playlist as it goes. I'll include a link to it up there. You can click above Dante's Purgatory and Grover to find it, okay? You could do a lot worse than listening. There's only one song on the entire mix, which isn't super great. It's one of my songs. So I put one of my songs on there. I'll get to that later, okay? So I think there are some very explicit influences which we need to talk about first. And that's part of, I think, the joy of Kraftwerk is they have so much fun. I mean, of Telegraph, of King Gizzard is they are so clear with their influences and they have so much fun with their influences. And because they simultaneously take their art very seriously, while not taking themselves very seriously, it permits us that kind of fun. So I think if you just look at the cover, it's pretty clear that they're trying to pose like Kraftwerk. If you don't own any Kraftwerk music, that's fine. If you've never listened to Kraftwerk music, you're really missing out. Because if you like long-form electronic dance music, proto-electronic dance music, before the term even existed, we're talking the 1970s, you have to listen to the German group Kraftwerk, who really worked a lot on the synthesis of man and machine, okay, of humans and machines. A lot of the themes that would come to dominate the entire genre. Okay, so I think that kind of soulful, intellectual electronic dance music, long form, is a perfect way of understanding what King Gizzard is trying to do here, what the Giz is trying to do. And for that, I put on the playlist an example, Europa Endlos. You have to listen to the German version. It's a better version, I think. It's like an 8-minute song. It takes forever. It takes its time. It has a certain space to it. It's what I call a landscape song, a song that you can listen to while looking out over the landscape. When I was in Germany, I used to stay in camping platzes, little camping places, and I'd wake up every single morning and I'd listen to this song to start my day. It's just got that kind of breath, okay? That kind of automated soul, the robotic soul. Right? But Stu Mackenzie, hey, I wrote his name down. It is Stu. Said in an interview that the other inspiration is Donna Summer's work with Giorgio Moroder. He says, I love Donna Summer's records with Giorgio Moroder, and I never listen to the short versions now. I'm one of the people who wants to hear the whole thing. This ties into this whole album, which has two versions, a short version and a long version. I'm only going to be talking about the long version for reasons which I'll explain soon. But what he says is we are testing the boundaries of people's attention spans when it comes to listening to music. I'm heavily interested in destroying such concepts. And I put on the playlist there for you the Love to Love You extended remix by Donna Summer as produced by Giorgio Moroder. If you're like me, you were vaguely aware of Giorgio Moroder before the song by Daft Punk, where Daft Punk really helps Giorgio Moroder explain how did he personally take music from disco to electronica, right? Like what was it that he did? And of course what he did was he synced up the click track to the beat and was able to make electronic disco. So right there, I think we have a good starting point. If you only listen to two songs to better contextualize this entire album, I suggest you do that. I went on the King Gizzard subreddit, which is surprisingly not toxic for a band with such a passionate fan base. So props to you, Gizheads. Someone named S1MSMMYMYMMISSMN8 suggested VCMG as a good reference point. The guys from Depeche Mode, their electronic music, I hear that. Someone named What Evil appears to have a much keener understanding of these electronic genres than I have. He says to listen to Asen and the song Left Field, and then he boils it down, or she boils it down, I don't know, What Evil, or they, who knows, says, basically, I would say that most of the album has its roots in 80s, 90s acid house and drum and bass. This is where I think ignorance might help us. It helps me. Because for as long as I've been alive, and I was around for the beginning of electronic dance music, I just called techno. Okay? The orb is the same as Orbital. Is the same as Skrillex. Is the same as Prodigy. Is the same as the Havana Boys. Is the same as Daft Punk. It's all just techno to me. Now, some of you, me saying that is like I just took some aluminum foil and just chewed it up against my metal fillings, okay? Like you hear me say that and you just get repulsed, and I don't blame you. This is just ignorance that I have. The same way that I listen to heavy metal. Metallica is the same thing as Black Sabbath is the same thing as Napalm Death. I mean, I'm capable of understanding that there's differences, but to me there's heavy metal and there's techno. Now, I'm a music cricket, so you're probably typing, how dare you call yourself an expert? Don't worry about it. I'm not an expert. I'm an expert on teaching French. But what I think is interesting is that I think that's what the band is going for. I don't think they're going for one specific thing, as What Evil suggested, 80s, 90s acid house and drum and bass. I don't think it's that limited. I do think it's intentionally going back to the proto-electronica of Giorgio Moroder, of Donna Summer, of Kraftwerk, maybe even some Devo in there, definitely some New Order, okay, all that kind of stuff happening back there, while also tying into Prodigy and all these other sort of more specifically 90s music. To make something which sounds to me like techno, which we now call EDM, because it turns out techno is a specific term. Musically, great. Lyrically. So, this album might as well be in German. So I don't know what's happening to my hair right now. I'm just going to put some water on my hand and try to tame my hair a little bit, because that is doing some goofy stuff right there. This is why you don't edit. Huh? You see other music reviewers do their hair live on screen? So lyrically, it might as well be in German. I did not pick up a single word off this entire album. Maybe like a sentence here or there. Sometimes they'd make reference to a song from the last album, and I'd understand that. But it might as well be all in German. I read the lyrics, and I was super excited because, I got my Bustadante finally back up there. Big old marble Bustadante. And the last album I thought was very tied into themes of the Inferno, and so I thought maybe this will be Purgatory, No. Now, this album is a panoply of gods. It is just a pantheistic clusterfuck. That's the only way to say it. They are just flipping through a world religions book and going, boop, all right. Let's see, I got my Australian accent. How do I do an Australian accent? I'm not going to do an Australian accent. Let's do the Chinese god. Let's do the Sumerian hero. Like, they're just kind of jumping all over the place. There is a general theme of apocalyptica. You know, we are talking about a lot about the end of the world. We're talking a lot about the destruction of the earth, recreation. But I want to credit them for not having a more specific, like, for not having better lyrics. And I like the imagination that comes into their lyrics. You know, there's a degree to which there was this point in the 70s where there'd be heavy metal groups or rock bands, and they would have these sort of liner notes, and it'd be a lot about wizards and stuff like that. And there's something about King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard, even just with their name, but where you have that kind of expansive, sitting in your basement with the wood-paneled walls, reading the liner notes kind of feeling, even though no one has liner notes anymore. There are 2 versions of each song, which is very cool. The short version and the good version. It's funny because I just reviewed that Taylor Swift album, which also has multiple versions. And much like I respect Taylor Swift, and I will never listen to a scooter version of one of her songs ever. I will never listen to a scooter version. I'm never going to listen to the short versions of these songs. I mean, I listened once, you know, just to make sure they were the same basic song. It's cool. It's very cool, actually. It's a pretty nice, tight little album as it is on its own. But if they want me to listen to the full version, I am going to. And I think they're better. And I think they're better because of the following reason. Why were those Giorgio Moroder songs so long in the first place? Why were those disco remixes so damn long? Well, there's 2 good reasons. 1, dance. Just to dance. And I'll tell you, I'm sitting there in the baby pit. The system is down. You know, we're sitting there and we're dancing, and it's a great time. But also, it gives space for development. So much space. Do you know how hard it is to describe this album? You know how hard it is to be a music critic for this album? Listening to all the different things that happen, all the different developments, rhythmically, melodically, instrumentally. There are all these decisions being made, all these things happening, and there's just so much space, you know? It's like they just built a bunk bed, and they have so much more space for all these activities. You know what I'm saying? There's just so many activities here. And so now that I'm 17 minutes into my review, I'm testing your patience, but hey, if you watch my videos, you know that I believe in the extended philosophy. You know, I'm not going to give you a grade. I'm not going to give you numbers. I'm just going to give you thoughts. And when music is this good, this rich, my thoughts are going to take some time. So, you know, chill out. I still don't like what's happening with my hair, but I don't know. Angelo is my hairdresser. He's very good, but I never know how to get my hair to look the way he makes it look. So, I don't know. It's like reflection off the light. I don't know. It's okay. It's a very bizarre being insecure and vain and a YouTuber at the same time, which I think is probably all YouTubers. Okay, so let's get to my stamp, my example song. The title track, the silver chord, track 2. I'm going to do my God's best, my Gaia's best. Okay, I assume that they all worship some kind of patchouli god, right? I'm going to do my best to describe one song from the extended mix, okay? To give you an idea of the richness that is in here. 0 minutes, gentle lead in with some pulsing bass, like little shuffling keyboards. Also, some warm pads, like warm synth pads, like kind of washing over. And then this little boop, which reminds me of 2 things. It reminds me of a submarine, and reminds me of a song by Sigur Rós, Svenge Engar, which is in the playlist as well. Check it out. This great sort of underwater feel. And then there's like this dirty drum machine snare or hi-hat sound. And then 40 seconds in, we get these totally messed up vocals, which sound very similar to the vocals on the song Kid A by Radiohead. Not the album, the song Kid A, which is also in the playlist. And then the pulsing bass eventually becomes the rhythm. And then at 1 minute and 48 seconds, everything falls apart. There's this weird kind of computery chaos warbled thing, and after that it builds up to, at 2 minutes, a full resolution with the chorus. At this point, I think we're in full 3/4 here, and then you tell me, correct me if I'm wrong, because all you Adam Neely folks out there, you know way more about music than I do, okay? This is just a hobby I picked up in the lobby, so feel free to correct me. On anything, for that matter. Eventually, this like warm and embracing, it sounds like a vocoder sound. It reminds me almost of like some Brit pop. I couldn't think of the exact song that it reminded me of, so I didn't include it on the playlist, but I swear to God there's some Brit pop song this reminds me of. Not quite Bittersweet Symphony, but something like that. Then 2 minutes and 43 seconds into this like 11-minute song, it gets even higher and more inspirational with the voice and this vocoder. The sense of release and this relief after that of the verse. We now have this. At a certain point, snare hits come in, but they're incidental snare hits. It's like, hey, drummer machine. Is the drummer programming the drums? Is the dude, Stu McKenzie, programming the drums? Is any of the other 5 or 6 members of the group, who's doing this? I don't know. And then at 3:14, 3 minutes and 14 seconds, there's like dancing of different rhythms and these huge hits happening behind, and the lyrics actually come out, Bodies in a Dream. And this is maybe one of the least expected songs on the playlist. Reminds me strongly of the song Paradise City by Guns N' Roses. Not musically, but melodically. Then at 3 minutes and 38 seconds, the dancing keyboards come back, and then like that Sigur Rós book comes back, and then it cuts down to just a voice and these kind of twirling synthesizers. Do you hear how hard it is for me to describe this music without just flopping into some kind of synesthetic, psychedelic freakout, okay? 3 minutes and 50 seconds, the drum machine returns, but it's way behind the voices. Rhythmically, it's very hard to dance. The dance party in the baby pit is going a little bit rough right here. Fortunately, my baby doesn't care about rhythm. I mean, my baby cares, but doesn't know enough, you know. It's 13 months old, 14 months old. And around 4 minutes and 15 seconds each, there's this, like, basically a sound that only my dogs can hear, and possibly high pitch, and then becomes just this low rumbling synthesizer, and then the dance party starts. We're cracking out the glow sticks. We're all over the place right here. Because this is where it becomes, at least in part, a full straight boom, 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 boom. 1, 2, 3, 4, these swirly synths in the background, and still that little bonk sound from the submarine. I'm telling you, the whole album is in landscape. I want to drive to Colorado listening to this music. Okay, it's my dream to see them play at Red Rocks. I don't have a bucket list. That's it. That's the only thing on my bucket list, is to see King Gizzard at Red Rocks. And I want to drive and I want to listen to this song while staring out the window and watching the landscape pass by. We're still only a couple minutes in there. 5 minutes and 9 seconds, a little tiny keyboard solo comes in. It's a kind of a new melody with like a downward melody. While these synth pads play behind, it all creates these little sort of sub-rhythms, still on a full baby pit rave here. 5 minutes and 45 seconds, the little curling up and down melody that's played chromatically. So chromatically is when you play like notes that are next to each other, not necessarily together on a scale. Around 6 minutes, things get more aggressive. More aggressive. An angry synthesizer where they're changing what's called the gate, which makes that sort of sounds. So many layers. I'm still not even mentioning all of them. There's some kind of whiny metallic sounds, which I haven't even really got to. And then at 6 minutes, 54 seconds in, a new melody comes in. Another descending chromatic melody comes in, almost kind of Middle Eastern. You know, they often have sort of what sound like non-Western scales. That's just the way they like to play. I've discussed whether or not it's cultural appropriation. I think the answer is no. This goes until 7 minutes and 10 seconds, where they telegraph that it's about to end. There's some falling apart sounds that hint at the end of the jam, and then bam, 7 minutes, 29 seconds. This voice comes, the pulsing bass, the new keyboard, 7 minutes, 50 seconds. The drums come back, but now, by 8 minutes, the drums are basically garage-style drums. They're basically drum and bass, almost even jungle drums. Like, you haven't even noticed the whole song hasn't had this style drums the whole way through because you're so busy. You didn't need these drums, but now you have them, and we're basically like in the Prodigy world, you know? And then 8 minutes and 10 seconds, there's some haunting keyboards come in. And then by 8 minutes and 42 seconds, I swear to God, I've got Mortal Kombat feeling. If you don't know, Mortal Kombat was a movie after it was a video game and had a soundtrack. And my friends and I used to listen to the soundtrack. We drove to see Mortal Kombat on opening night, directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, if I'm not incorrect. And we listened to the soundtrack driving to the Sherry in Boston. It's no longer there. And we blasted the Mortal Kombat soundtrack, track 1, over and over and over again. And that, to me, is part of the joy of techno. I don't care if it's a stupid commercial, whatever. Dan, 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 dan. It's got that feeling and that energy. The same energy I got from listening to a great version of He's Gone by the Grateful Dead. That same pure joy of human creation I felt with Test Your Might. 8 minutes and 53 seconds in, another minor melody comes in, seemingly out of nowhere. By 9 minutes and 13 seconds, we have a hi-hat louder and faster. The drums are sort of kind of doing that kind of sort of fast work on the snare, some keyboard sounds. This is the point where every once in a while my kids say stuff and they want to be on the video. I can just say they're saying something to see if it'll make it. Well, I doubt that Goat is watching this, but Goat was at dinner and said, this sounds like it's from a video game soundtrack of a Matrix video game. I'm a proud dad. That's a killer line right there. This does sound like what would be on a Matrix video game. Tell me in the comments if you agree. 9 minutes and 45 seconds left. A drum machine, cymbals, all on the fours. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, this hook on a synthesizer carries everything. Who cares what they're singing? 10:25. It falls apart. Almost sounds like cult members yelling. We start having some guttural singing. Okay, I'll talk more about the guttural throat singing that they have throughout this whole album. 11 minutes and 14 seconds. The original Kid A style voice comes back. Except this time, it has a full, like, real drum beat that were absent from the beginning. Because the beginning... Do you remember the beginning? Do you remember when I started talking about the song? Do you remember when the song started, like, 8 hours ago? Remember? We had not even made it through Pennsylvania. Okay? We were driving, but we hadn't even made it through Pennsylvania. At this point, we're somewhere in Ohio. Okay? We forgot where we were. I forgot where the song started. But it started off with sounds. But now we have drums. Real movement. Cool ride cymbal little things there. And then it ends with like the submarine sound and no drums. Little like horny farts. Middle Eastern scales. Echoes. Were those horns always there? When did they appear? I can drive myself mad trying to break this all apart. So that's one song. Okay? That's the joy / agony of these long songs. It's only agony if you're trying to describe them. If you're trying to listen to them, you just drink it all in like a good meal, okay? If you're eating a good meal, you're not sitting there wondering, is that coriander or is that cumin? You're just enjoying all the spices, the way it all comes together. I tried to break it all down for you, and I didn't even make it there. What were the lyrics? Power made of Ptah. Beautiful child of love. So Ptah is a creator god from some ancient culture. I am a vessel, just a poor boy traveling by my bodies. This is the part that reminds me most of Paradise City. Anyways, this is a sort of repeated theme of the body just being a vessel and kind of moving its way through. Maybe we are in purgatory. Maybe. Maybe not. So that's just one song. At this point, if I've not earned your thumbs up button, then you are hate watching for no good reason. Okay, you should have said this is a pretentious prick a long time ago and stopped watching. So if you are here, smash the like bucket, subscribe. You can buy my mug if you want. Join me. Patreon's weird as hell, but I'd love to have more Patreons. I have a new one, Les Etoiles, just joined, but I haven't had another new one in like a month. So I don't know. That'd be cool. I don't do ads on this. In general, I don't trust any sponsors. Like any sponsorship on any YouTuber, don't trust the product. The people need to get their bag, need to pay their bills, all that. But don't ever believe anything they're saying. And even if I end up taking sponsorships in the future, don't believe anything I'm saying. I'm lying. I'm just saying whatever the company wants me to say. So, Oh yes, and there's the hack. You will sometimes see underneath my videos AVAA. That stands for awesome video as always. If you include that in all caps in your comments, I will always heart the comment because I read every comment, and that will just give you a little, oh cool, the guy who I'm watching saw the thing that I wrote. So I'm going to go through the rest of the album, mercifully a lot quicker. I'm turning into the organist from The Simpsons who plays In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. Very specific reference. That's how I feel. It opens up with a track called Thea. Cool kind of sci-fi sounds, always great rhythms, sort of Idiotech Kid A rhythms behind. Every time I make some kind of reference to Kid A, someone comes in and says, actually, that was Aphex Twin. And I totally believe you that like Radiohead was just biting Aphex Twin the whole time, but like I don't know enough about Aphex Twin to know when it's Radiohead and when it's Aphex Twin. So in my ignorance, I say Radiohead, feel free, and I'm not joking, feel free to leave a treatise. I swear to God I will read it. I will. Leave a treatise about when it's Aphex Twin and when it's Radiohead that we're hearing. A really cool breakdown with a vocoder. This is where why I put up one of my songs on YouTube. I have a whole album. I have a couple albums actually on Bandcamp. Stuff I recorded 20 years ago. It's not very good, right? Like, there's a reason I'm a critic because I'm not a very good musician. But I did an entire album. I recorded the drums and then I overdubbed everything on top of it. So it's 45 straight minutes of music. So it had this kind of like spacey feel, and I had a vocoder setting on my keyboard, and I had like a Chaos box, which is a kind of a cool thing to play with. So, anyways. If you want to hear, like, what do I sound like? Well, that's what I sounded like 20 years ago. A weird, sad song in which I directly asked my mother if she loved me. Then there's like a little jam in here, and again, it's like, who's jamming? How does this work? How did this work? And then we get a woo! If you know anything about my love of... If there's anything that's going to make me into a full-fledged Gizzhead, it's first of all getting to call myself a Gizzhead. It is second of all just the woo! That is the pickle in the burger, right? The best thing about a McDonald's hamburger is the pickle. Everything else is incidental. You eat it for the pickle. That woo! That's like when I'm eating a McDonald's hamburger, which is my go-to meal when I'm on the road. When I'm driving, okay? If I'm driving to Red Rocks in Colorado, I'll stop off at a McDonald's and get 2 cheeseburgers. I'm waiting for that woo! And this is a cool thing where they actually tie in Motor Spirit from the last album. So it's fun because it does have this sort of complementary aspect of where the last album, Petro Dragonovich, whatever it was, I'm just making it sound more and more like a Balkan name as time goes on. Petro Dragonovich. Like it does have a sort of like balance, sort of a yin-yang sort of thing, where there's like the super technical instrumental stuff made by super proficient virtuoso, and then this album, which is largely sequenced and put together and could theoretically be made by somebody with not a lot of technical skill. And then having sort of like these more spiritual themes and the more sort of dark themes and tying them all together. It's nice because, my introduction to them was KGLW, which, again, kind of these companion pieces. And then after the whoo, there's like a little flute sound. It's really nice. And these kind of sweeping synthesizers. There's just all this expansive middle bit here. I'm just a vessel. I'm just a poor boy. And it ends in this very Kraftwerk synthesizers in the end, while at the same time some cool like time signature plays, and all the lyrics are about Thea, which is some kind of planet that crushed into Earth and made the moon. I swear to God, they're going to turn me into patchouli spiritualist myself, So perhaps our Thea's collision was not just a cosmic death, but also a means of fusion. And that day we took our first breath towards like a higher ego. In the vast and honeyed sky, leaving behind our mortal coil, silver cord now torn. The spirit flies. That's fucking interesting, man. It's great. It's great because I didn't hear it. I didn't hear any of it. This is how I hear it. Okay, I don't hear any of it. Then we get to the stamp, silver chord, ties into the last song. Then we get to the song Set, referring to the Egyptian god of destruction. straight out of the last one. I love how the keyboard matches the voice. And then we get to the first sort of Prodigy style rap. So if you don't know The Prodigy, there's two. This is funny. There's Prodigy from Mobb Deep, whose album HNIC is like one of the most underrated rap albums of all time. If you've never heard it, god damn, you gotta hear it. I mean, first of all, Mobb Deep is amazing. And then there's The Prodigy, which was this great electronic dance music, big beat, acid house, whatever. You tell me the genre in the comments if you want. They're still making great music, by the way. Their last album was great. They're just great. You know, you're the victim! You know, that kind of guy. But the rap style here, you know, it's not trying to be rap. It's trying to sound like that kind of Prodigy style. The example that I gave of Prodigy in my playlist is the song Breathe. It has been suggested that their earlier work is more representative of this, but man, if you've never heard I just have to bring that to you because that song rules. There's this kind of sound, like they use so many tropes of all this kind of 90s electronic dance music, but they use them so sparingly. So like the of the hi-hat, they just use for like 5 seconds in the left channel. There's so much happening in this great jam. I don't know what they're doing here. I don't know what they're doing, but I love it. Oh, and there's a certain point where the drums got more pronounced. And I was so proud because my baby was just kind of sitting there playing with Grover or whatever. And then that part came, and then all of a sudden she got super serious and really started dancing. Next track is called Chang E. Not Change. Chang E? Chang E? It starts off vaguely Eastern. I think that's on purpose, given the fact it's all about a Chinese moon goddess who lives on the moon with a rabbit. Is that what they were doing in Super Mario Odyssey? Was Super Mario Odyssey all about rabbits on the moon? Is that like a... It can't be, right? Anyways, when you talk about rabbits on the moon, that's where I go. But what I think is interesting here is it reminded me, it's sort of like a little jig in the middle, almost like an electronic jig at a certain point. And it reminded me strongly of the middle of the song Baba O'Reilly by The Who. Now, that Baba O'Reilly is the song that everyone thinks should be called Teenage Wasteland, right? Out here in the fields, I'm singing like Bruce Springsteen, you know. But it has this cool little electronic bit in the middle. It's a very long song. And it has that little electronic jig. And just, The Who really belong up there with the Rolling Stones and the Beatles. They belong in the same breath, but they're never put in the same breath. They're always put one rung down. I think they should be. Maybe I'll do a video about that sometime. Maybe I'll do my own Mike the Snare style deep discog dive, because like every single Who album is great. So, anyways. But like they definitely deserve more credit for being ahead of the game of playing with keyboards, playing with synthesizers and arpeggiators and all that stuff in the middle of the song. So that's why I put that song in there. His voice is super high and sweet over the keyboard, calls back to the song Witchcraft from the last album, and I don't know. White rabbit beside mother of pearl, float in the bright night, Changi, furnace now subdued, riding on moonbeams. I am totally coming around on these lyrics. You know what it is? It's that whole thing of doing it seriously without taking yourself seriously. So I think these lyrics are serious. I don't think they're just trying to be goofy as hell. But they're not afraid to be goofy as hell. Next track is called Gilgamesh. Oh man, this is a great song. Cool, weird arpeggios to start off. Spacey descending notes. This reminds me the most of Kraftwerk, especially in its usage of the Doppler effect. And then it goes into like another full Prodigy style rap, and then some like more of that throat singing. And that's why I included one of my favorite things, the actor Billy West. Best known for being Fry from Futurama. He's also done a million other things, but he also does the voice for Popeye now. And he explains how to do the Popeye voice as you mix together the low octave and the high octave at the same time, which creates a kind of throat singing, right? Like the Mongolian throat singers. So I just included that for you to think about the technical skill that goes into that singing. Even better than what I just did. The voice box comes in again. There's all these little details like that. Remember what I did for that other song? You know, the Silver Chord song? I could do that for each of these, you know. Each of these songs is an epic tale like Gilgamesh itself. You know, like 10 minutes in and there's like this cool, weird four on the floor, like just, you know, dance party, expansive house, rave jam. Some 808 claps are in there just in the middle. And it just gets you, and by the end you're just super pumped up for this rise up, rise up. And the lyrics are all about Gilgamesh, who I actually talked about fairly extensively in my Sufjan Stevens review from a couple years ago. Next track is called Swan Song, not related to Led Zeppelin's record label. Another killer Prodigy style song, cool kind of boots and claps, techno rhythms there, more of that kind of Popeye rapping, great buzzing going up and down. It sounds, again, kind of a Doppler feeling. It sounds like this was like sung by a monster who's going wah, 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 you know, like a monster is singing with a Doppler effect. Crazy vocoder sounds here. There's like a Metaloid Maniac voice solo in here, kind of flanging, going low and high. What's great is there's all these simple house tricks, simple techno EDM tricks over very complicated songs. And then like 7 minutes in, there's this sweet little moment of quiet before it like leads into this dirty synth melody. A lot of this reminds me of probably my favorite techno song of all time, even more than the Mortal Kombat, is from a different movie, from the Blade soundtrack. Blade was a vampire movie. It was not a comic book movie. So we can retroactively say it was the first Marvel... No, it was a vampire movie. It was a badass vampire movie starring Wesley Snipes. Anything else is just retcon. But it's a great movie, and it starts off with this scene of a rave with blood. It's very gross, actually. I don't like the scene at all. But it's a remix of the song Confusion by New Order by someone called Pump Panel. I might end up doing an entire video just about that song, because the way they take a song that is known for its catchy melody and then flatten out the melody and turn it into just one of the best hard-hitting techno songs you will ever hear. A lot of this album gives me that same feeling. That's how I listen. You know, normally when I review an album, I listen to it, 2 times very closely, 1 time with the lyrics, and then that's about it. Maybe 1 more time in the house. This one I listened to straight for 3 days, nothing else, and not even paying attention to the lyrics, just jamming out on it because it is able to get you to have that feeling. Weird kind of culty lyrics at the end, never wake up from this bad dream, the buildings turn to ash, the dead in the street. Emphatic blasting on the keyboard, which leads us to the last track, Extinction, more sweeping synths, more incidental kind of Kraftwerky style sounds, voice back and forth from left to right. The drum machine sounds like it's falling apart, and there's a change in rhythm after this woo. And then maybe my favorite lyrics on the album, definitely my favorite lyrics on the album. I can see everything I can be in the music. I know, it might be a drug thing. I know that's a popular side effect of drugs, is feeling like you have a heightened connection to music. I am not willing to risk my brain health to discover that, but I will objectively acknowledge that sounds pretty cool. But I don't know if it's necessary. I think if you are emotionally in touch with yourself, and if you are sufficiently open-minded, you can be in the music. And that's why I keep talking about the Baby Pit rave, because I was in this album. I was in it. Whatever the hell King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard were doing, whatever kind of emotion or sentiment they were trying to make me feel, I didn't need to be at the Desert Sun Music Festival vaped out of my brain, right? I didn't need to be at Red Rocks. I didn't need to be anywhere. I could be sitting there playing Near, Far with Grover, and then take a break and just listen to this music, And that's the beauty of it. I've got all these more words, all the different things it's doing, all the cute melodies and drum machines and sketchy keyboards and all the crap I say all the time. But what's the point? What's the point anymore? It's such a good album. Cool Marauder outro, Imperious synthesizer. I'm going to throw all these terms out. These are all things on my notes. You can see them right there, okay? You can see them all right there. They're all in my notes. But at this point, let's just lay back and just appreciate the art here. So, that's my review of the album. These are my Patreons. I am so going to buy this album. Oh, you have no idea. I cannot wait to listen to this album. I can't wait to put it back on again. I only own one King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album. That's Butterfly 3000. But I love listening to their music, especially, on a hi-fi, and just letting it fill the house. God, I love rock and roll. I know I talk a lot about rap. I'm gonna do a rap album next, but anyways. All right. Until next time, for Toby, Bo, and everybody at Club Baby Pit. There's the camera.